Welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast, with this being season number 4, episode number 29. I am your host, Robin Stoltman, and today I have my guest, Rob Beltz, who has a BA in psychology, and he has a multiple subject credentials, and he is on the show talking about parental and student anxiety during the pandemic. And before we get started, remember, every week I feature different guests to help you become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. So let's get started. Thank you so much, Rob, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for the invitation. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor. Thank you.
Well, how has the pandemic affected kids and their parents? We'll just get right into like the main top question.
Oh my gosh. We need about 5 hours to do that. But no, seriously.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Great question. Thank you for asking that. The pandemic has really hit hard a lot of families. And, when we went into shutdown, excuse me, back in March of 2020, it was like we went from 90 miles an hour to nothing. And what happened was, as you know, out here in California, there was a lot of fear going on with this pandemic, because at that time with the COVID, there was no vaccination. So what had happened with a lot of parents, a lot of families, is a lot of folks we found at our school lost their job. Sometimes families would move in with grandma and that sort of thing. And kids went from being able to go outside and play and be with their friends and go to the Nickel Arcade and John's Incredible Pizza, and then all of a sudden just nothing. And they basically were staring at four walls in their home. And it created a lot of anxiety for kids. And when we went to distance learning, what was really difficult was the kids, you could hear siblings in the background, maybe parents in the background. Excuse me. And the anxiety was a lot for the parents, because some of them still had to go out to work, and they had to leave their children either in the care of the older siblings. And sometimes the older siblings, my wife, who's also a teacher, notices too. With her sixth grade students, and I teach fifth grade, with the sixth grade students, a lot of times they were responsible for the care of their younger siblings. And so when it was time for distance learning, kind of like what we're doing now in Zoom, they, if the baby was crying or the baby needed food, then, they would have to step away from their distance learning connection with their teacher and take care of the family. And the families were kind of stressed, the parents. And one of the things that we try to do, I have a fantastic colleague I work with. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we did, and you're going to think we're wacky here, but I guess to be a teacher, you have to be a little wacky, but we love what we do. We would we've given our families our personal cell numbers. And we say, hey, if you have a question or a problem, the workday doesn't end for us at 3:00. If, we appreciate, you might be working nights and sleep during the day, but you might be working all day, and maybe you need to get a hold of us and have a question about a behavior or, excuse me, an assignment. And some of the families were like, this is just so hard. This is just so hard. And they get a little stir crazy, and, because the kids are cooped up. And there was a time here in California, you probably remember, where the governor called a shelter in place. And so you couldn't really go anywhere. And can you imagine, Robin? I mean, I know you have children. My daughter is, our daughter is in her early 20s, but you have school-age kids, and they can't go outside, and they can't play with their friends. They can't go to school, where a lot of their socialization is. And they get cooped up, and they get stir crazy, and then their parents are having a tough time dealing with that too. So, excuse me, kind of, you can relate to that, right?
Yeah, but maybe that's just because mine are all little too. I mean, mine are under 6 years old. All 5 of them, but they're 6 and under. But yeah, I know what it's like. They do go stir crazy after like 2 or 3 days not being outside of the house.
Exactly.
And then we go crazy because we're like, we just want the kids to settle down.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of parents would be like, "Do you have any suggestions? Anything we can do?" And we're like, folks, we're like flying the new jet plane while we're reading the instruction manual. So we're all in this together, and that sort of thing. And Robin, that was one of the toughest things was with adults, we can kind of understand and grasp what's going on, but for kids, when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and older, wow, their world just came to a halt. And they're looking at this talking head. And some of them never met me. I'm just this talking head, you know, and it's hard to have that relationship and rapport with a child and a child with a teacher if you're not in the same physical proximity, right? And so that was what was really challenging. And some of the kids would be really tuned out. Some of them wouldn't want to turn on their camera or their microphone, or maybe sometimes, depending on what the situation was at home with, younger siblings running around screaming through the house, they wouldn't necessarily want to turn on their camera or their microphone. And some of them got tuned out because it's almost like surreal. It's like, this isn't a real person I'm talking to. This person who is my teacher, he's this, maybe, a little thumbnail window on my computer screen. And so what was really dispiriting, Robin, was that as the school year went on, a lot of kids got tuned out, and some wouldn't log in, and I would talk to some of the kids when we actually went back into session, when we had great social back in the classroom. We had the plastic partitions. We were masked up, and it was weird already, with that. But I had to stop, and I asked the kids. I said, "Guys, I need to know, how are you feeling? What are you feeling?" And some of the kids would share, "Mr. Beltz, um, with the pandemic, I felt really sad. I couldn't go visit grandma. I couldn't go out to the park and play with my friends." Some of them were angry because they couldn't, for the same reason, be with their friends, go out and do the things they love to do, go to the movies, go out for John's Incredible Pizza or wherever they like to go. And I said, I really appreciate that. And here's the thing that I really tried to do. I had mentioned to them, you guys are my heroes. You guys are my heroes. Why? Because we as adults can kind of understand what's going on. But for the kids, you guys don't understand. It's like everything came to a screeching halt. And
Yeah,
it wasn't anything you did or anybody else did. It's just kind of the way things went. I said, you guys are my heroes. Thank you for being strong. And one of the things I wanted to give them, and a lot of us did this too, a lot of my teaching colleagues and friends did, we said that this is temporary. Things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. And at the same time, a lot of us are just terrified because, you hear about the COVID deaths and there's no vaccine and 2 or 3 years out and whatnot. And, things got better. And I said, you guys are here. You guys are healthy. And one thing I really tried to do with lowering anxiety, and I still do, I have them, we do ancient stretches. And so every day we'll spend about maybe 8 minutes. We'll do stretches. We'll do something simple. We'll do neck rolls. We'll do arm rotations. We'll do hip rotations. We'll, do some leg stretches and things. And then we do a thing for affirmations, because I really feel it's important for kids' self-esteem. I tell them, guys, sometimes your families are working really hard, and God bless all the families. I mean, they're our heroes too. They're out working.
Mhm.
Maybe they're working, 1, 2, 3 jobs because maybe they've lost their business. And I have them repeat things like, I am smart. I have a smart brain. I have a kind heart. I have helping hands. I am creative. I am capable. I am artistic. I am loved. I am needed. I am wanted. I am special. I am unique. I have greatness within me. And then I'll turn to one of the kids and say, okay, let's do a virtual high 10. Okay, so what's a positive message energy you want to give to somebody else. Okay. And one of the kids, we did one today, and they said, you are amazing. Okay, guys, with the COVID, we can't really, physically high five each other. We'll do a virtual high 10 on 3. You are amazing. 1, 2, 3. Wham. You are amazing. And the kids really love that. And there was one day when we got busy with something else, and one of the little girls, who's sweet as pie, she said, Mr. Beltz, we didn't do stretches and affirmations yesterday. And I went home and felt a little cranky. And I went, oh, okay, good to know. Point well taken. We're going to make sure we do it every day. And so we do that. And I think it helps the kids. And I tell them, you can teach your parents this, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the things I've tried to do with lowering kids' anxiety, is that sense of positive self-worth. And it's not just, me getting on the soapbox and, blowing a bunch of smoke their way. It's true. We all have unique talents and gifts and abilities, and we all mean something in the grand scheme of life. And I want them that to be instilled with them, and not to be afraid of what's going on, and to know that whatever's going on in the world, whatever it is, social unrest, the COVID, whatever, that, right here and right now, they're safe, and we are their family, away from their own family, and we are together, and we're going to take care of one another like a family does, and support each other with positive words. We're going to learn, and that sort of thing. And so we find that the kids, positively really responded. That I ask them, sometimes I think they're bored. I'm like, are you guys, what do you guys think of the stretches and affirmations? Oh, Mr. Beltz, we're like, I'm like, cool, So I think it makes me feel as good as them. So that's just kind of like what I've kind of pulled out of my bag of tricks, not in the a devious way, or just because way, but something that I felt needed to be done. And it's not in the teacher handbook, but a lot of us have had to kind of create our own way to build kids' self-esteem, and kind of help them, be less anxious. We do some deep breathing too. One of the things I teach the kids, take a deep breath in, and I have them say, I'm breathing in positivity. I'm breathing in positivity. Now exhale. Say, I'm breathing out negativity. I'm breathing out negativity. And so that's another thing we do too. So kind of like a total physical response. So that's kind of the method to my madness. And I'm sticking to my story.
Well, no, that's good to have. They need to be teaching that in schools in general. That's like what my thought is. Kids need to be taught their emotions are theirs. Nobody can make you feel a certain way. You're the one that chooses them. And kids need to be taught how to label them, because I have found that when adults don't even know how to label their own emotions, it creates problems. And I'm guilty of that too, because there's some emotions I'm like, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling something. So then I'll pull out like my picture chart, and I'm like, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling this emotion. Label it. And then it just like, okay. I'm like, that's all I had to do. That's all it wanted to be heard, was just like, that's what emotion I was feeling. But I think that's important that you're doing that with the kids, because when they're breathing, they're shifting their energy, they're being more mindful. And there's a lot of studies to show that mindfulness is the key to a lot of good that we need in our lives. So that's a good thing that you're doing that. So I can see why the kids would like that.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, we just, it's all about the kids and trying to meet their emotional needs. And I wanted to share with you too something very interesting that my principal experienced. This was early on this school year. He went on a Zoom meeting with, I think it was about 50 or 100 principals across the whole United States, and they were sharing common things. Oh, kids seem to not be doing well academically, and this and that. And it was interesting because we've noticed in the teaching community that a lot of the kids that were doing distance learning with the shutdown, with the schools and whatnot, that it kind of stunted their social emotional learning. And what we've discovered is that a lot of kids, like third graders, will be kind of socially, emotionally functioning at a first grade level, fourth graders kind of at a second grade level, fifth graders at a third grade level. And it's just really interesting because with that lack of socialization, kind of like what we talked about earlier, Robin, where you're
Yeah.
sitting in, these poor kids are sitting in these same four walls day in and day out, week after week, month after month. They don't have that socialization. And yeah, that's been pretty tough. And I remember our principal told us at one point, "Hey guys, right now we need to kind of put the academics on the back burner. We need to focus on the kids and on good manners." And some of the kids kind of forgot their manners. And I know that kids really love media. I know a lot of adults do. Uh, but what was interesting is, are you familiar with the TikTok challenge?
Yeah, there's quite a few that I've heard, and I'm like, some of
Uh,
them not so good. The last, like, there was one I heard about a Tide Pod thing, and for a Tide Pod challenge in TikTok or something, and then there was another one I heard. So that's when kids were eating the Tide Pods like candy or something like that.
oh
And then there
wow,
was another one I heard um, recently that they were worried about it happening here was like kids are supposed to steal something like that from the school or something. That's the
yeah,
last time I heard. I'm like, I don't understand why these kids are doing this. Like, I understand, like, because they are being, okay, so a lot of people don't think that they're being hypnotized, but they are being hypnotized incorrectly because of the social media, the constant being on social media. I believe that's why they call them internet trolls. But to me, I'm like, I think that's where people have gotten more anxiety, more anger, more violence, more mental health issues is because they're spending more time on social media, and they would never say over 50% of the stuff that they say online to that exact same person in real life. They just wouldn't, because they know that they get their block knocked off. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
right, right, yeah,
I'm just saying they wouldn't be saying it if they were in person.
exactly. And Robin, I totally agree with you. Are you familiar with the one about the vandalizing the bathroom? I think that was the first one. Every month
No, I hadn't
has
heard
some.
that.
Well, we had a big problem out here in California, especially in our town. One of the TikTok challenges was go in and kind of like trash the bathroom. And at one of the high schools, some of the kids removed an entire toilet and a sink. And at our school, sometimes they would break the soap dispensers and whatnot. And it's kind of like this challenge, like, uh, you know, like you say, it's like they would, if this were a real life situation, it's one thing, but when they see it on the media, they're so dialed into that. And certainly media, it has its benefits in a lot of ways. But one of the things that our principal did and our district did, and I want to impress this upon all the parents that are listening to this, please be very aware of your child's social media, particularly TikTok, um, Instagram, some of that stuff, because some of the kids are really acting out in not appropriate ways. And I don't want to slam the media, but I agree with you. There's a lot of negative stuff that kids are picking up. And
Yeah,
that's one of the things.
yeah,
Yeah. And so, like, some of the other TikTok challenges were like, you know, um, swat your friend's girlfriend on the rear end, or, hit a teacher, and, things like this that's just way, way, out of line. And,
yeah.
it's gotten better in some respects. We've really had to crack down, but we still get a little bit of vandalization in the bathrooms. And we're just trying to teach the kids that our school is our community. It's our home away from home. I'm like, would you guys do that in your own house? No. What would happen? Oh, I get, you're, like you said, your
Yeah,
block knocked off, right? And
yeah,
as
you
would
would.
you or I if we did that. So, I just, and also sometimes some kids are taking pictures of themselves in clothing that is not age appropriate.
Or not at
And
all.
or yeah, fortunately we haven't dealt with that yet, at least where I'm at. But yeah, that can happen. And they're trying to pass themselves off as someone older. And I just, to you and all of our our the parents that might be listening to the podcast, please monitor your child's social media, and kind of get a feel for that. And that's one of my biggest concerns. One of our biggest concerns is that the kids are just so dialed into that. And you know, we could go on a whole side topic about
We could.
some of the computer games that have violence and whatnot. And it's not for me to, as an educator, to dictate to anybody. But one thing that we do impress upon our families a lot, I have a terrific teaching partner. We impress families and kids when we meet with them for conference. We don't put a lot of homework on them. There's enough stress going on. We give them like maybe 30 minutes of reading, 30 minutes of math a night. And then it's like, when your child goes home, go for a family walk, do some chores, help mom cook dinner, be a family, go visit grandma, go out and have pizza, things like this. That's more important. It's about the child. And particularly during this time with the pandemic, because I've had a discussion with my kids, Robin, in my class just the other day, and some of them are still feeling a little sad or a little nervous. They keep hearing about the variant strains going around, and some of them have lost grandparents. I know at my school we had about a third of our staff out with Omicron, and my wife and I just finished recovering from, and we were double vaccinated and had the booster, and we're masked up and practically taking a bath in hand sanitizer in the classroom. And and I think it's important that kids kind of not listen to the media too much. But again, that's not my call as an educator. But from one parent to others, that media just likes to cycle it like, COVID is right outside your front door. Well, no, it's not. It's, you and I both know it's out there, but it's not the wolf clawing in at the front door, right? So
Yeah. And me personally, I've been exposed to it I got it while I was pregnant, and I got the only
oh
complication with it, which is pneumonia. Pneumonia, we
oh my
know for a
gosh.
fact will kill people. That's the only known complication, but nobody will go out and say it except for me. And I had pneumonia. That is far worse because my husband, when he had it, and I'm like, and then I get all these men that have had it, and I'm like, you want to be pregnant, 33, 34 weeks pregnant, have pneumonia with that? Yeah. And then we talk, the men on social media that were complaining, I'm like, they quickly quit talking because they're like, they realized I had it harder being
Oh,
pregnant.
absolutely.
But yeah, I haven't had it since. I never got anything, and I'm not going to. But I've been exposed 4 more times, never got it back since, and I'm very thankful for that. My kids never got it, and they've been exposed 5 times. So I'm like, take good care of yourself. Stay away from the social media, like you said. I think it should be banned for anyone under 18. I really do,
I
because
agree with you.
it causes so many problems, and that's not to say that we don't need it. But when we've got grown adults on there that are acting worse
Oh yeah.
than children, like I
Oh,
said, it's I had to start cutting Facebook. I had to start doing things for my own sanity because I'm like, if anybody wanted to meet me in person with what they just said online to me, I'm like, they wouldn't say it. They just wouldn't. And
yeah.
it's not because I'm a violent person, but it's like they would have respect for another person instead of just saying, oh, they're just somebody on Facebook or whatever. I think you kind of get like what I'm trying to say. Like
Oh,
there's a difference
absolutely.
in yeah.
It's easier to talk brave when you're kind of this faceless entity, right, Robin, on the other
Yes.
side, and it's totally different well, I'll give you a classic example that kind of really supports what you're saying. Excuse me. And I've seen this several times this year. Oh my gosh. But kids will talk brave and they'll talk smack about other kids. And then you
Mm-hmm.
get a whole bunch of other kids on there, and then they want to fight at school or jump other kids. And we weren't having that problem a while back. And again, you know, I don't know how much of that is the COVID situation. I think a lot of it's just social media. But I'm
It
like,
is.
gee, guys, can't we do something? Go out and ride your bike, paint a picture, throw a basketball around, those sorts of things. And, you know, kind of talking a little bit about anxiety, I'm a 2-time prostate cancer survivor, and I
Oh, wow,
had
I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. And so, I had a recurrence. Um, let's see, where are we at here? Sorry, I had to think. Last January of 2021,
Oh,
and there was some
wow.
concern about me going in the classroom. And so, I kind of think about some of the families. What about these parents and grandmas and grandpas that have asthma and some of these other things going on? And then they've got the kids and then the COVID thing going on. And so, I can tell you, being a 2-time cancer survivor, that being in the classroom, I've gotten COVID once. I had my shots. I had my booster, and I'm not getting on my soapbox about the
Oh, you're
vaccine at
fine.
all. But my point being taken is that I survived it, and I was afraid. And I really want to encourage all the parents that are listening, and the grandparents and the guardians. Take a deep breath. Just be good to yourself. And who is it, Robin? Maybe you heard this one. I think it was Zig Ziglar said it, and I love it. Fear is false evidence appearing as truth. And so
It
I
probably
share that
was
with my.
him.
I'm sorry.
I think it probably was him. I've heard it so many times for false
Yeah.
evidence appearing real that
Thank you. I
it's
think you're right. I think that's it. Yeah, and we got to be brave for these kids. I mean, I was nervous. I mean, I had a recurrence of cancer, and at that point they didn't have any vaccines. And so, we're masked up, we're hand sanitizing, we got the partitions around us. I'm like, the world still spins around, and it's time to just get in there and do it. And I have other colleagues too. Some of them have mine was early stage 1 cancer, and I've had some friends that are like stage 4, and
oh wow.
they're still in the classroom doing it. And I don't say that to toot our own horn, Robin, but I say it from the perspective that we just sometimes we just got to do what we got to do, and not let the fear cripple us. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because I know like with the work that I do with the subconscious mind, like in the hypnotherapy, I'm like, we come up with our own problems. Like 95% of all medical issues that are so-called medical issues are because of our own doing with stress, with our mindset, everything causes illness. Like that's how I attracted COVID the first time. I'm like, you know what? Let's just get it. So I can tell people that it's not that bad because that's exactly what I did. Yes, I do have asthma, so it wasn't the funnest when I had an asthma attack while having pneumonia. That was horrible. I will say that.
Oh,
Um,
God bless you.
but I did learn a lot about my own strength. That's why I haven't attracted it back because I'm like, I know how to take care of myself. I do essential oils. I do have like CBD oil. I do those things
Yeah.
routinely so that I don't get sick. But when I attracted it, I'm like, that's okay because I needed to. But then, yeah, like our mindset, like my favorite one to tell people is like fibromyalgia. That's mostly for attention, and I know that because one, it's a body syndrome, and body syndromes are basically anything that the doctors can't find a why to having it. And that's not saying that everything's that way. But I will say this, that using the hypnotherapy and the emotional freedom technique for like the energy work I do, that's why I don't have fibromyalgia anymore. That's why I
Awesome.
don't have the depression and the anxiety and stuff like that anymore because I figured out how to use it to empower me. And people aren't talking about that stuff. So it's like I rarely see a doctor now. Only when I'm pregnant, and that's about it. Even at that, I'm like, I told the doctor this last time when I got pregnant, the last 2 times now. I've said, you know what? I want to stay healthy. I'm going to stay away from you guys. I know when I got to come in at my 20-week ultrasound, just because I've had repeat C-sections. And the other time is 28 weeks for my ROGAM. And then the next time's delivery. And they're like, yep, that's fine. I'm like, I want to stay healthy.
Amen to that. God
Yeah.
bless you. God bless you for what you do and helping others. And Robin, there's I've done a little bit of research about hypnotherapy, but the power of suggestibility, and you're the expert in the field. I just kind of, read a little bit about it. Is so powerful. And that's one of the reasons in the classroom why I'm trying to get the kids to always focus on positivity, because as you know, if we plant something negative, and then it goes in our belief system, then what's going to happen? Like you pointed out, which is very interesting. You find it manifests itself physically, right? And same thing with the kids. Oh, I'm going to suck on this test, or I'm not going to do good at soccer, or I can't write this paper, whatever it is. And then they're setting themselves up for failure. So very interesting, what you're sharing about the suggestibility and how, all the physical ailments come from,
It does. And
very
like,
interesting.
I know like cancer is one of them that can happen. But then you also got to add in the environmental causes too. Because you can't just say that it's just the mindset, because it is environmental toxins that we get. That's what like my thing is, like all of the sprays that people have been using, I guarantee there's going to be a huge increase in lung cancer because of all the chemicals having to clean. I guarantee there will be, because of that issue alone, because people aren't thinking about they're breathing in toxins. The lungs got to deal with it. They're not able to get it out. So it's got to stay there. And it's sad. It is what it is. It's really sad that we're putting more out than good. But yeah, there's so many different things that I could go on myself for a lot of different things. But yeah, that's why, like, my example I like to give to people is my doctors told me I was supposed to die 2 C-sections ago because of all of that's what they said, because I've had 5 C-sections in the last 5 years, all in a row. So I was supposed to die from the last 2. And I'm like, yeah, if I die, I die. And I'm like, I'm not going to. I'm like, I can either choose to accept what the doctor told me, or I can say, you know what? No, God has it. And that's what I've done. And they're like, well, you might have this and this. And I'm like, God's got it. I'm not worried. And so when I went in for the last one, I ticked the doctor. I won't forget the look on the doctor's face because I ticked her off. She's like, if we just tie your tubes, you'll be just fine. You won't have to worry about dying. And because the next time you get pregnant, you got a 10% chance in dying, and all this other stuff she was saying. And I'm like, so I told her, I says, so since when have you become God? The look on her face.
Good for you.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't need this. And I'm not going to accept it, because we can choose to accept or reject things. And that's why, like, my thing is, I do agree with you. It's very important for parents, for teachers to say, hey, yeah, the kid may have this idea, like what you said, they may suck at a test or something. Well, if you think that, yeah, that's going to happen. But if you think positive, so what happens if you take that test? What happens if you take that spelling test? What happens if you take that math test and you actually apply yourself? Because you know it, you're going to pass it. You already know the material. So you've had how many quizzes? I don't know if teachers still quiz, but I'm just saying.
We do. Yeah, we do. Yeah.
We won't go into like the rest of the stuff because I was in the dumb math class. I don't care what the teachers, they try to tell us that it wasn't the dumb one. And I'm like, no, I was in the dumb math class. I wasn't in algebra or trigonometry or any of those fancy terms.
That was me too. That was me too. Fundamental math. Gee, it's not trigonometry, is it? So that's where I had to be. And that's, like I tell the kids, everybody's got a strength. My strength was always in reading and writing, but math and science were not too good. I'm okay at it now. How about you, Robin? It sounds like math was kind of not
Well,
really,
see, that's one of the things that's the power of the mind too, because I was
mm-hmm.
good in math. In second grade, I had a teacher who ruined math for me. I was doing really good. I
Oh,
knew the answer without the
yeah,
teacher having to. We were told how we had to count out the little cubes. Like, I remember there were little yellow cubes. We had to count them
yeah,
out. And that's like, I didn't have to do that. I already knew the answer. So I would be forced to stay in during recess to take and do math. So I don't like math. I'm very good at it, but
yeah,
I don't like it because of that one teacher. Because I couldn't go play with my friends. So my subjects that I am good in, I was in college prep reading and writing in high school. And then I was also I earned a college credit for business when I was in high school. And then I was in college prep American studies. So it was like a combination of history and I don't remember what the other one was.
yeah,
I just remember history was one of them, but I was in the college version of both of those classes and they were too easy for me. So that's beside the point. But science was not my
yeah.
strong suit.
Yeah. So we
Science
have
was not either.
we have our sweet spot, right, with what we learn. And you know
Yeah.
what? I had a similar experience too. And this might crack you up, but the last thing I ever wanted to be in the world was a teacher. I never
Really?
wanted to be a teacher. I had aspirations of being, when I was like a little boy. We had, well, back then it was Super 8mm movie cameras, way before your time. And nowadays the kids, use their iPhones to make videos. And I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be another Steven Spielberg or George Lucas. And also, I'm a musician, and so I wanted to be a musician and record albums and tour and whatnot. But what happened was, in first grade, I had a teacher, kind of the same thing, kind of ruined me. And I was so self-conscious, Robin, about my, uh, I wouldn't say my inability, but my struggles and challenges with math, um, that I would cheat. And, you know, because I didn't want to be shamed by the teacher, I would copy the one little girl next to me and I'd get an A plus. Oh, good job. And I'd walk away. I'd just be like, oh man, I feel horrible inside. So when I became a teacher, because I love working with children, um, I took the vow that I will, and I've told the kids a story. And actually, the first grade teacher I had actually told me so many words that, you're not very smart, and I was just crushed. I mean, it's
Yeah, you're not
devastating.
allowed to say that nowadays to kids. My husband, there's a 3-year difference between the two of us, and he doesn't even remember that teachers legally could slap you on the wrist if they wanted to for using your left hand. And I'm only
Wow.
35, I'll be 36 soon. But I mean,
Yeah.
like, my husband, there's only 3 years, he's 3 years younger. He doesn't remember any of that. And I'm like, I do. My second grade teacher
Yeah.
took and did that. We had dance in school though, too. Kindergarten, that's basically what it was nap time.
Oh man. Yeah.
I
And see,
miss
that's the thing.
that. Half days and
Yeah.
naps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Your snack and the nap, right? I
Yep.
remember that too. I'm 59, and I think there's so much pressure on kids to be academically proficient, and I don't want to get real political, but let's face it, the politicians, and drives us crazy as teachers, because I've been doing this 25 years. Test scores, test scores, test scores. Well, who cares about the test score? I mean, test scores
Nobody does.
are important, but they don't measure the value of a person.
No, they
They don't,
don't.
they don't measure the intrinsic value. And so maybe that kid isn't not everybody is designed to go to 4-year college. Maybe they need to learn a trade. Maybe auto mechanics, or you know air, HVAC, fixing. And there's good money in that, and somebody's got to do that. And courtesy services, and running a restaurant and things, you know but that was the thing that really got to me, and what I've told kids. And I really felt God impressing upon my heart this, that I'll tell the kids, if the math is challenging. I teach the language arts. My partner he does the heavy lifting. He does the math and science. But I tell them, I said, you might not understand it, or it might not be understandable yet, but don't give up on yourself, and I'll tell them, next year when you're in 6th grade, I may stop you in the hall. Hey, how's division of fractions going? I remember it might have been a little challenging. Oh, it's better now. Good. What did I tell you? And so just trying to reassure them. And sometimes there's such a value on grades and on things that's too much pressure to put on a kid, I think.
It
And so do a
is.
lot of my colleagues. Test scores, yeah, we call it regurgitation a lot.
Yeah.
Regurgitation. Well, yeah, but do you know? Do you know how to add and subtract if you're trying to figure out how many gallons of paint you need to repaint your child's bedroom? To me, that's information enough. But you mentioned earlier the trigonometry and all. It's like, no, I don't think I'm going to go in the store and say, yeah, pi squared times 3 equals whatever. But I don't know how you feel about it, but I think the purpose of education is to really encourage the child to explore and be the best that they can be, not by our agenda, but the best that they can be, because we're not all the same. I'm
Yeah,
not
we're not.
proficient at math, or, I'm okay at it, but
Yeah, like my thing is, for me, the only things that I think a majority of us remember from school is, one, how we were treated by other students and our teachers. We
yes,
remember that one, no problem, especially the negative, because the brain, for whatever reason, cannot process negatives. It just can't. So that's why when you tell a kid don't do something, they go ahead and do it, because the brain literally doesn't hear the negative part of it, but it focuses on
yeah,
the negative 10 times more than the positive. But then, like, we remember that. And then we remember, obviously, reading and writing, and math, what we can remember from it.
yeah,
Fractions, I won't go there, but thank God I remember enough about fractions to cook. I can cook better than my husband. I can double a recipe and triple a recipe and be okay. We won't go any higher than that because we won't want to know how it turns out.
yeah,
I'm just saying, but like those skills are needed. And then, like, the only other skill that I remember from school that I actually needed. See, I was in choir and I was in band, but I don't I don't use them.
yeah.
So it's almost like a lot of it got wasted. And it's not that it's like fully wasted, but like none of those tests mattered. But it's the spelling, well, spelling does. There's a lot of people that can't spell.
Oh, yeah,
My husband, he still thinks it's sandwich, and I'm like, no, it's sandwich, and then he can't even spell it right. But we won't go
yeah,
there on the certain words like aluminum or other words that.
right.
But I'm just saying, like, in general, a lot of us, we don't use over half the stuff. Like, none of those
Yeah,
test scores mattered. Not a single one of them mattered for me, at least for the work that I do. And you are right on like the college, that it's not for everybody. Just like building a business, like especially in the work that I'm doing, I don't know how many people that have had a severe front right lobe traumatic brain injury like I have had. I haven't met anybody yet who can still talk and still be their own guardian after their injury, like other than myself, because I've met a few people, and they don't have that. I mean, some of them couldn't even walk or talk anymore,
mm,
the way I could when I went for a walk for thought in Minnesota when I lived there. But I didn't do my hypnotherapy until after that. But that wasn't even a 4 year. I couldn't do that. I can't do 4 year. I couldn't do in person, but I could do the hypnotherapy, and I love it. I love
oh,
learning about the mind and how it works and why we do what we do and how we do what we do. I love that part. Like that part all day long, every day I could talk about. But those tests in school, I will say one of them, I don't remember the name of it, but it was one that you had to pass in order to graduate from high school.
oh, yeah. I can't think of it either. I graduated from high school in 1980, so I think
Oh,
they raised the bar as things went on. So, um,
I just remember
Yeah,
I
but I know
didn't
what you're
pass it
talking
for
about.
math. I didn't pass it for math the first time, and I had to do summer school, and I hated it.
Oh yeah,
So it's just like a
yeah,
reinforcement to hate math.
yeah. And it was it like an exit exam? It sounds like it was an exit exam, right? High school exit
I
exam.
think
Is
it was
that what it
like in
was?
seventh grade or something that they give. It's like a
Seventh grade.
standardized testing or something that they gave
Okay.
us in seventh grade, and
Jeez.
it was
Yeah.
horrible because it's like I had to redo math again. Bad enough my second grade teacher messed it up for me, and then like there wasn't like for me. Well, it was for me because of her. I'm better at math without having to write it down. I don't have to do like the writing it down. And she would tell us horrible things like when you get to high school, like her thing was is when you get to high school, they'll cut your fingers off if you don't know how to
Oh
do
my
the math.
gosh. That is
I
so
won't say
inappropriate.
her
Yeah.
name because I don't know if she's still alive, but
Oh gosh. Yeah.
yeah,
The names have been omitted to protect the guilty, right? You
yeah,
know.
basically. But yeah, I'll never forget that teacher, how horrible she was to me because it's
Yeah.
like I could have done so much better if she had been in the positive of you're going to learn math. It's okay. Like math is not one of those easy ones now how they're teaching it. My niece tried to tell me like how
Well,
they do it nowadays and I'm like, what the hell is this?
yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. They try all these different things, and it's kind
There's
of like
only one way to get an answer with math. I'm not sorry. There's only one way to get an answer.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes they like with division, they'll do certain things where, um, they'll round to do. The way I learned it was you divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat.
Yes,
And I tell the kids, you find the
it
way that
works.
works for you. Right. Right. I'm sure you had to sound like you had the same thing with your teachers. And
Yep.
I had some really good teachers. I mean, I remember my second, third, fourth grade was okay. Um, fifth grade was okay. Sixth grade, one of the things that I remembered, and I kind of stuck this in my little, teacher bag of tricks, was humor. And it's like comedy. You read your audience and it's all in the delivery, right? And
It
when
is.
I was in sixth grade, I loved fractions. I'll say his name. He's still around. He's a wonderful man. Mr. Stephen Botcher and Mr. Tom Parker were my sixth grade team teachers, and I loved them. I loved math. They had a sense of humor. They didn't make me feel less than. Mr. Botcher was great. He was funny. Mr. Parker taught us science, and we do these little taste tests, with little baggies of things and like salt and sugar and things, and record it. And that was cool, hands-on stuff. I dug that. But I made a mindset. They were the ones really that inspired me to become a teacher. And I realized kind of the long way that after being a drug and alcohol counselor, after doing property management, my wife said, "You need to work with kids." Okay. So she signed me up with National University, and I substitute taught 5 days a week, and 2 nights a week I went to class from 6 to 10. You probably went through the same thing, taking care of your family and taking your hypnotherapy
Oh
classes,
my,
right?
yeah.
And it worked out. And I just took the vow when I go in the classroom, I'm never going to make a child feel less than just because of their score. Try this again. Let's look at it this way. you know and they say uh, practice makes permanent, and that sort of thing. So anyway,
Yeah, practice makes
it's
perfect. And I'm like,
yeah,
meh, not so much on the perfect part. I'm still learning.
yeah. Oh,
Because
we
that's
all
my
are.
that's like my model. Like I guess that's what a lot of people don't know. It's like one of my things about me is my family all knows this, that the day I stop learning something new, I don't care how old or young the people are. Like my mom, she's very much no, only the older she listens to. So that was always impressed upon me. And I'm like, but if my kids know something I don't know, I want to know. That's just who I am. But I'm like, The day I stop learning, that's the day I want to die. Because to me, then there's no
Yeah.
point to life. When I can't learn something new from somebody else that will help me better myself or better others, what's the point to life? It doesn't exist for me anymore.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And when we were talking earlier before we started the podcast, it's kind
Hmm.
of like I heard this from Les Brown. Are you familiar with Les Brown, the
Yes, I
motivational speaker?
am.
Oh, I love him. He was really a source of strength when I was recovering from my first bout of cancer, and I was supposed to have been dead 3 times during that. And that's a whole other sidebar. But by the grace of God, I'm still here. And
Hmm.
one of the things he said was, he said, "You're never too old to learn, and you're never too young to teach." So, like the other day, we were doing these Google slide presentations. Are you familiar with that, where the kids can create a slideshow on their
No,
computers?
I'm not that technical.
Neither was I.
I have to have my niece and like YouTube videos on how to figure out some of the stuff yet.
Yeah. Well, I tell the kids, "Come here, show me." And one of the kids showed me how to animate, one of the slides, one of the pictures. I'm like, that's cool. So I had him come up and share it with the class. And I think that's another thing too. I think sometimes as parents and as teachers, I think sometimes we're afraid to make mistakes, and it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. I was doing a lesson the other
Mistakes is
day
how we
and one little
learn.
girl. Pardon me.
Mistakes are how we learn.
Exactly.
I
Mistakes are
learned the
opportunities to
biggest
learn.
things from my mistakes.
Oh man, I make them all the time. And so I wrote the date wrong on our daily quote. We always start with the daily quote, something positive. And one little girl said, "Mr. Beltz, the date is incorrect." I went, "Holy guacamole, you're right." Well, thank you for that. And I turn to the kids. All right, guys, who's perfect? Nobody. Everybody say, "Nice try, Mr. Beltz." Nice try, Mr. Beltz. And that way I try to lessen the anxiety in the classroom, because I'm not perfect. And I tell the kids, when it comes to making mistakes, my name is at the top of the list. I mean, I'm not talking about, horrific things or really things on a
Yeah.
grand scale, but, writing the wrong date, or maybe calling a student by the wrong name, you know, maybe I'm calling Julia Mary or something, and maybe I have, my caffeine hasn't kicked in for the day. Right. So, yeah, I just, I want to encourage everybody. I'm sure you feel the same way. We just got to go easy on ourselves. Is the way things are in society and the world. Everybody's bashing everybody. Just forgive yourself. Be patient with yourself, and it's okay to make mistakes. Um, Dr. Richard Carlson. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He had a thing. He was saying that the 3 words that a male is an adult male is afraid to say is "I don't know," and I've said
Yeah.
that quite a few times.
That and I'm
So,
sorry. Those are like the two things. Those are the two phrases. The other one's I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I don't know, and I thought, wow, I thought, well, being male and being a teacher, I got to know. No, you don't. Not everybody knows everything. And I tell the kids that, guys, I don't know everything. And I tell the kids too, Robin, I tell them, you know what? I'm not smarter than you. The only difference between me and you guys are 10 and 11. I sat in those chairs once. The only difference between me and you is I've just been around longer. I've had more practice at things. And you guys are going to grow up and you're going to be great. You're going to be our leaders. You might be my attorney. You might be my mayor. You might be my doctor, when I'm, you know. And so I just tell them, hey, you guys, we're kind of in this together. We're a family, and it's okay to make mistakes, and we're here to bring each other up. And, I'm sure you're probably aware of there's been a high percentage of suicides amongst young kids,
Yeah,
especially
there
during
is.
the pandemic. And it's very troubling. I've had 2 of our former students commit suicide, and both of them were under the age of 11. It was tragic. And so, again, I just want to mention, to you and to everybody listening, parents, just please, please, spend time with your child. Um, yeah, I know we're all tired when we come home and we want to, put on the TV and maybe check out our Gmail and our YouTube videos. But gosh, go out for a walk, sit down and talk with your child. And, it's easy. I've been guilty of it too, and I've had to make time to do that. But my point being is that kids are under so much pressure. And they say even during the pandemic, the suicidal ideations and
Adults and
attempts have
acting up.
gone up. And so what our district has done, and God bless them for doing this, is rather than having, like we used to have, a school counselor like 2 days a week at this school and 2 days at another school, because of the pandemic and because of the severe mental mental health challenges we've had. We have, thank God, we've got a counselor 5 days a week at our school, and still not
Oh,
enough,
that's
but it's
nice.
something, and
That's
so,
nice though. That's helpful.
oh, absolutely. And it's helped us a lot. And so, they have a lot of kids to deal with, but, and I encourage, any parent, take advantage of your school counselor if you have one. Um, you know, um, just use any resources that you have, because, our children, they're our legacy, and they're going to be the leaders of the next generation. We got to take good care of them. We got to instill confidence in them, and let them know that they are worthy, and that they're smart, and they're loved, and they're needed, and they have a place in life, and they're important. They're very important.
Yeah, they are. And the thing, like one of the things I want to do with my hypnotherapy, but I've had a few people tell me that it won't work or doesn't matter, is like I want to help the kids. And they're like, well, you're not going to find people that are going to want to do stuff with their kids. And I'm like, I want to teach kids body positivity. Be proud that you're a boy. Be proud that you're a girl. Be proud what God gave you, because um,
Absolutely.
like I've told people, and like I said before the show, that my biggest thing is, if we were to go into war right now, because the way society is going, we're all screwed. The USA is going to collapse in less
Oh yeah.
than 24 hours because we need men. And I don't care if anybody has conniption fits about it at all, because I'm like, if we need men to go out there and be men and fight for us, because women, I don't care. We got muscles. We can have a baby. But there is no way on God's green earth are we ever going to be stronger than a man physically. We're just not. We don't have that. That's why God made a man, to protect the women from harm. Like, it's in the man's biology, in their brain, to protect women. That's just who men are. And we need to stress that to kids. Be happy that you're different, because
Yeah.
if all of us were the same, it would not be fun world. It wouldn't.
No,
But I
it'd be
have
boring.
fear. If we go into war, there's going to be a lot of coloring books and a lot of kids that are adults that should be ready for a war. They're going to be wanting their little coloring books and their blankies and going to hide, instead of being a real man or a real woman. That, because there are women that go into the military. I could never do it.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm going to need them to go out and do it. But we need the real men to go out there and fight. The real women that can fight, go out there and do it, for the rest of us that can't. I'm too old to fight now, but I mean, like, still. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, it
Yeah.
takes that generation, that mentality, saying, hey, you are valuable. So that's a good thing for teachers to do. That's good for parents to do. Because, yeah, you are right. One of the things I keep in mind is that I tell my mom this all the time. I get to choose what nursing home you go to, if you go to one. Your kids get to determine whether or not you go into a nursing home or not, and if you get to live long enough to go to a nursing home.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
And I appreciate what you're saying, and I can say, with my family, I'm proud that I have one. I have two nephews, one that served in the military, and another one. And you're right, that generation, and it's kind of neat to see. I've seen some young people. Some of my former students have went on to go in the different branches, and I'm so proud of them. Because
Yeah, I am too.
they
We
have
need
that
our
patriotism.
military. Yeah, no military and no farmers. That is the
Oh,
death of America. But the
oh,
military is the number one
absolutely.
death. If we don't have the men, being taught that it's okay to have men, we're dead in less than 24 hours. There's no way that we're gonna live. And people that are like in my age group on up, we're too old to be fighting. It's
Yeah,
not that we're too old necessarily, because I don't know like what the military says, but they would never take me. I'm like, I've had 19 surgeries and stuff like that. They would never take me.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm just saying,
yeah,
like, they can't take anyone that's in their 40s on up, because you got to add arthritis, you got to add overweight, you got to add a lot of those things. So I'm like, we're in trouble.
yeah,
That's why I'm like, I
yeah.
very much
No, I
believe in teaching boys are boys for a reason.
Yeah, no, I think that's terrific, and that's one thing we see as teachers is sometimes kids are confused with their gender identity or their
Mhm.
sexuality, and sometimes they'll mention things to us, and we engage our school counselors a lot for that, to give them that support, and then to work conjunction with the families. So, and we see some suicidal ideations with kids that are confused about their sexual identity, and that that's not our place as educators to dictate the kids. That's between them and their families. But I encourage parents just to be very aware of what they're drawing in their notebooks and who they're hanging out with and things, and just love them, and be supportive of them for who they are, and get through it, because kids, as you know, Robin, are so confused right now. They look around at our world and they see the civil unrest, they see the COVID, they see the world situation, and they see their parents trying to deal with situations, losing their job when companies shut down, and some of the other family dysfunction. And there's a lot of wonderful families, but there's a lot of family dysfunction out there too. That
Yeah,
um,
there is.
there's not there's a lot of great parents, but there's some that are not really good role models. And I encourage, especially parents, if you've got an issue with something, or whatever, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, please step up your game and be there for your kid. If you don't do it for anybody else, do it for your child. you know um and I'm speaking specifically about sometimes with, there's a lot of families that have gang affiliations or drugs or substance abuse and whatnot, and get some help. God is the ultimate source for everything, according to me. From my experiences, and I encourage everybody to to reach out to him. And that's just Rob Beltz's feeling about it. But Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and my higher power, and all the answers are in the good book, in the Bible, and they're there. And I don't know. I've kind of said a lot, and kind of went on a few little
No,
side talks here, but I think it's important. The family unit just has really crumbled, and
it has,
it
and
could
it's
be so
sad.
much better. Yeah,
But
and there's some
it's
great families. I
sad.
mean, I don't want to make a blanket statement that
Yeah,
oh, all the families are screwed up, but there's a lot of families that moms and dads need to work at the marriage. They need to stop doing the drugs, and the gang affiliations and stuff. And it's fact. It's fact. Because as a teacher, we see so many kids that have had parents that have died from gang violence, or went to prison, or have done this, that, and the other. And those kids, folks, your kids need you. They need their mom and their dad. And
and we don't want
so,
them to
anyway,
become another statistic either.
exactly. Amen to that. Yeah. And we don't want them following the footsteps. And, we don't want your child to grow up feeling rage and whatnot,
Mm-mm.
because, mom or dad left, or that were incarcerated, or were killed, and have that resentment, and, ruin their life. And so I don't know. I'm all about having God. I'm sure you feel the same way. God leading and guiding us in all of our areas. And none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time, but every day just striving to do better and better, and just to be a good role model. Just be a good person. Be kind. Be kinder. Just because some people out in the world are acting like idiots and doing things they shouldn't do, um, you know, uh, step up. Be your own hero. Be a hero to your kids and to your community. But that's Rob Beltz's philosophy, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, my story too, because like I said earlier, I said anybody that is not meant for me, I don't want him in my life, and I ask God for that every day.
Yeah,
Because once I started doing that, things changed for me. Because I'm like, I don't need to convince anybody. I'm not in the convincing business. And to me, I've met enough people that after um, they've met me, that's I think the one guarantee I can make is that because we got guaranteed taxes and death are two guarantees in
yeah,
life.
yeah.
But I'll make you a third one. By the time you meet me, you'll know God because that's just who I am. I'm not a 1 hour. I call them 1 hour Christians when they go to church on Sunday. They think that they're saved. They got everything coming. I'm the
That's
24/7
beautiful.
Christian, and I'm like, I even put it out on a post on Facebook one time. I'm like, tell me one self help book that has nothing based out of the Bible because you're not going to find it. You won't because every self
You're
help book
right.
is based on the Bible. Even the law of attraction that people have said that's new age, no, it's not. I actually learned that from Steve Harvey. And Steve Harvey is another good one that had a bad teaching
Yeah,
experience. His teacher kept telling him that he was never going to be on TV and he had his stuttering problem. So when Steve Harvey said in Habakkuk 2 and 2 about writing the vision, and make it clear so that the man will run to it. I read it in the Bible and I'm like, oh my God, all these years, I was never once taught that. And so I'm more closer to God than what I ever was when I went to church, but that's a whole other ball game. But I'm just
yeah.
saying,
No, I'm with you,
I'm
sister.
not,
It's and I
my kids are
I
like Jesus. I will say that. They're everywhere and anywhere that I don't expect them to be. And the things that come out of their mouth, I'm like, I got to work on my language that is not French.
yeah, yeah. And we say
I'm
and
the
do things that we shouldn't do sometimes, and there's some things that we should say or should do that we don't. And just again, kind of what I feel personally, I'm sure you agree with me, just being good to yourself, forgiving yourself, and say, oh, there
Yes,
I go, time to get on track, get back on track, get back on track, because none of us are perfect. And we just got to, I don't know how you feel about it, Robin, but I think the journey of life, and I've heard this said before, um, it's not a race, but it's an adventure, it's a journey. And
it
so,
is.
you know um, and there's no practice guide. It's not going to be like one day you're going to wake up and go, oh, I know everything and I'm perfect. No, we're just going to do that till the day we die. So you
Yep,
know
that's why a lot of people when I said why I mostly call myself an intuitive mindset expert. And a few people say, well, expert has a bad connotation about it. And I'm like, well, why does it? And then when I looked it up and I'm like, yeah, well, to me, an expert is a person, especially with mindset. An expert is one that says, hey, I admit that I'm not perfect, that I need just as much help as you do. It's just that I'm willing to do the extra work to get what it takes to have the skills that I need to turn around and help other people because I'm constantly working on myself. That's what an expert to me is.
oh, I think that's a perfect definition. I wholeheartedly agree with it. I tell my kids, I say, yeah, I'm a professional, I'm a teacher, but I don't know everything there's about everything. And there's times the kids will ask me a question and I'm like, I don't know. Hey, let's sit down, let's Google it, and then I'll project it on the screen. Okay, and what was one I did today? Which one
I'm
is it?
older than
Oh,
Google.
oh,
My niece taught me that one. I was like, my niece is like 12
yeah.
or 13, one of the two. And she taught me that I'm older than Google. I'm like, thanks. I'm finally
Oh,
older than something.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm way older than Google. And one of the little girls, she was doing a Google slide presentation. We're doing informational writing, and she was doing it on malls, malls. And so she goes, Mr. Beltz, how many malls are there in California? I said, I don't know, but come over here, bring your Chromebook, let's look. So we sat down and we looked at it, and there it was. I thought that was cool. I said, thank you for sharing that. I said, I learned something new, and um, trying to get people, not just kids, but adults, away from that intimidation factor. And again, if we're just kinder and more gentler, I think the world would be a better place. I'm sure you agree with me.
I do. That's the biggest thing. That's why I keep saying, like I said, over my office every time. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want people in here that are going to be closed minded. I want people that are open to the
Yeah.
possibilities of we can learn from each other. Like if you sat down and you talk with somebody, that's why people like going to the psychologist that can't do anything for them a lot of the times, is because they just have somebody there just to sit there and talk. And it's like, so then when they come see me, they think it's the same way. And it's like, no, I'm actually going to teach you how to break through those self limiting beliefs. I'm going to teach you skills. We don't just sit and talk. That's not my job. So it's a lot of that validation, because like if we just sit down and talk to another person, like what we used to do back when I was growing up anyway, you just sit down with somebody and you're like, so what have you done today? Like, how are you doing? Like, have those
Yeah.
conversations instead of just what it is now. And I think the world would just stop being such a whole bunch of things I want to say
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you.
in a not productive way,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, I'll bite my tongue on
Right.
that one.
Well, I read you loud and clear on that. It's like, it seems like, and I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes we have so much on our plate, or what we perceive our plate, agendas and things, that it's like, I don't really need to do X, Y, and Z and Q and F, but I would like to do A and C, but I really need to spend time with my family. And like you said, just taking that time to check on somebody,
Mm-hmm.
showing that, and we lead by example, right? How are
Yes.
you doing today? And our kids, our students watch me and my team teaching partner. We're in two doors, and they see the way that we interact. And one of the kids said the other day, "Oh, you and you and Mr. Fullerton are really listening or watching, but we lead by example." And my partner, I'll say his
Mm-hmm.
name, Tom Fullerton. He's a dear friend, a dear colleague, a dear brother in Christ, and we get along famously. We like to have a sense of humor with the kids, and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, and we're really good friends, and we do a lot of activities together, and we complement each other, and I often say that being a teacher is 65% social scientist, 35% facilitator of knowledge. And so, um, yeah, it's wow, lots of things to think about. And
Yeah.
like you said, this world is, and this country, there's just a lot of things going on. And like I said before, not to sound repetitive, but if we could just, instead of criticizing, and I've certainly been guilty of this, compliment something rather than criticize, build up rather than tear down. And that's the way I was raised. It was more happier that way. But it seems like not everybody, but it seems like a lot of people, like you said, we were talking about earlier before the show, that you know with the media, a lot of it's tearing down, and it's just negative
It is.
stuff, and it's not edifying anybody or anything.
No, it's not. And edification is never like, it's not for me. It's for you to say, hey, I know this person
Yeah.
is the best person to talk with. That's why you edify somebody. And I learned that from surprisingly, I learned it from one of my network marketing companies that I'm in. When they're talking about why you edify somebody, is because it's not about you. It's about, hey, I know this person that has more skills. I know this person is the best person to talk to for this issue because they're the ones that have been doing it. They're the ones doing that. That's like the whole reason for my podcast. When I decided to break out of my own comfort zone and say, hey, that's another colleague that's from the college about being one of my first guests on the podcast. That's why I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And
Good
when
for
I did
you.
that, yeah, it was scary. I've had my podcast since like 2019, but I was scared. And so when I broke through that, I'm like, I really enjoy this. Like the whole point is to take and really help people become the best version of themselves. Because to me, it's a kind of a curse, but it's also a blessing. It's a curse in
Yeah.
the fact that when I don't see people living up to the potential that I know that they're capable of, that's the part that's the curse for me. So I try to just give it to God and ask Him to deal with it. But when I see people that are on their way there, just like what a teacher does, like I'm sure you like when the students finally get what you've been trying to teach
Oh,
them. Like you see that
absolutely.
light bulb moment, and that's what drives me in my office. Like when I do hypnotherapy, okay, I've had children, but for me, it's not that the adults are babies by any means, but it's like when they're in my office or like online and they finally get like why they're having this problem, like what's going on, and they finally get it. For me, it's like a new baby is just born. Like I get that amount of joy in what it is that I
Wow.
do. It's just like that's what sustains me. I'm just like, I love that. It's like you see a person come in like depression, they're like they feel hopeless. And then like by the third
Yeah.
session, they're like even like the up to the third session, they're like a completely different person. And it's like, this is why I love what it is that I do so much. That for me, like when I've had thoughts like, is the business going to succeed because of all of the stuff going on in the world with the media pushing inflation and all these different things?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, for me, if I didn't have this, I've lost children through miscarriage and an ordeal in Minnesota, and for me, it's equal to that. If I didn't have this business, it's equal to losing a child because of how much I love the work that I do, because I love to see those changes.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, maybe I'm just like an inner teacher
Yeah,
pushing
you
through.
are.
I love
You
teaching
are.
so much.
Yeah, and God bless you for all that you do, Robin, because it's very important what you do. And I'm familiar a little bit with the suggestibility of hypnotherapy, but yeah, and it's the same thing with affirmations. And so, like I said, God bless you that it's a, kind of a holistic form, and it's non, you know, medication and that sort of thing. And I think it's terrific. And yeah, that when I tell the kids this too, when and I've heard this said, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, I'm sure you've read his works and heard his stuff. He said that um, when you put your heart in something, your body will follow. And he was using the
Yes.
analogy. There was a famous trapeze instructor, and he was working with some young people, you know, on the trapeze. And this one young man froze up and said, "I'm afraid I might fall." And then he told him, you know, the instructor, wherever you put your heart, your body will follow. And so he did the drill and swung out there and did it. That's not a gig I would want to do, but I certainly respect the
No.
sentiment behind, you know, that we put our heart into what we do and that we love what we do. And I definitely love what I do. I love working with kids. Um,
I
it's a
can
little
tell that
difficult.
very much.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's been challenging, um, but you know what? Uh, like you say, I defer to God too, and I pray for the kids, and that we are to them what they need us to be to them. And to be mentors and, supportive and that sort of thing. And we do the best we can one day at a time with God's help, right?
Yep. And like I've told other people, I'm like, I will be the first person to admit I have yelled and screamed at God more than once, because I figure, you know what? I have a mom and a dad. They haven't been always the best to me, but I tell you right now, even when I yell and shout at them and I hoot and holler and I scream and cry, God's the exact same way. He can handle it. You froze up, Rob. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you heard the last
Amen to that
part I said.
Oh yeah, I'm still here. Yeah. Oh, amen to what you
Okay.
said. Yeah. No, I'm with you. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because I look at it this way. I can sit and be mad all day long if I want to. And for all I know, maybe God's up on, I don't know if you've seen the movie Bruce Almighty. But for all I know, maybe God is up there I'm on the anthill and he's burning off my feelers, some days. And I can be mad at him all I want.
Yeah.
But I tell you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't do things the way that feels good and aligned with me and what God wants me to do. I can't. It doesn't work. I've tried.
Yeah.
That's why I had to change my business name a few times, because God's like, I told you what it was to begin with. I told you this. I told you that.
Yeah.
You didn't do it. So I had to go back and
Yeah.
repeat it. And yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that can of worms.
We think we know, but
I didn't follow any of my questions.
it's like, okay, Lord, I'm with you. You know what's better, and He will close the door that we can't open, and He will open doors that no man can close. So, no, I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, He will. And I just find it so amazing. It's like, I'm really, for me, this podcast, it's not just like a way of trying to get my name built out there by any means. I'm like, I do want to be seen. I do have a message. I do want people to know. But it's really a collective of me helping other people. Because when I see like you succeed, then I succeed. And people may think that's backwards, but it's the truth. If you don't succeed, then how am I going to succeed? And if we weren't talking through this podcast longer than my typical time, we wouldn't have gotten this deep of subject that most people never have. And we're complete strangers.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like we know so much about each other just having this conversation. That's the part that people are missing. Like, I was laughing before this podcast, like when we were talking, I'm like I said straight up, I haven't laughed for so long, and I belly laugh. So when I want to have fun, I have myself laugh in front of a mirror, and I just watch my belly go up and down because I got a belly laugh. So I can laugh even harder when I do. I haven't even done that for a while, but I'm like, now I'm thinking I should do that, because it was like, I haven't done that for so long, because I'm so like serious focused, like what they're doing to the kids in school is serious focus. Be adults now. You only get to be a kid once.
Absolutely.
And when it's done, guess what? The rest of your life is going to suck if all you have to do is do the same thing adults do. You don't get to be yourself. You don't get to be that wonderful, loving person. You don't get to repeat childhood. And then there's things that I wish I had known in my 20s that I know now. And even a month ago, there's things that I wish I would have known that I know now, even a month ago.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
It's okay. We're where we're supposed to be, sister. It's where God has us. And I like the old saying, at 59, if I knew now what I knew then, in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, but this is the way it was supposed to go. God has a plan. Everything happens for a purpose, a reason. And,
I can't even remember that Bible verse where it is, but I've seen it in there. Where you talk about, there's a reason for everything.
It's in there quite a bit. I can't think of it either right off the top of my head. But God is always good. I don't always understand why he does things. I don't understand why I got cancer the second time. I don't understand, why the first time my treatment was supposed to have been easy with radiation and how I almost died 3 times. I don't understand that. And I'm sure you have a similar story. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and I was kind of traumatized by that for a while, Robin. But what I've done is I've surrendered to God, and I said, that's just what happened. I've gained a lot of insight. I've written a book recently, which I had aspirations since I was 12 to do, and I worked through that fear. You mentioned about your podcast. Well, I wrote a book to help new teachers, and a lot of it was for self-esteem, but some of it was, it's genuine information. I wish that I would have had when I started, because nobody gives you a book that says, here's what you do after you sign your contract. And so,
Yeah. But
I'm sure God will bless us both for, our work and what we're trying to do, one day at a time with his help.
yeah, he will. And it all takes time because and it never comes in the form you think it will either. That was like the biggest thing ever.
No,
God, you know
no.
that I need money. You know that that I'm on disability currently. You know that I'm trying to do what society views as impossible because he knows that. And I'm like, God, I just need some help with some money. No, no, he
Yeah.
didn't give me money. No, he gave me a planner. And I'm just like, God, what is this supposed to mean? So my friend took and sent me the planner. I got the concept of the reason behind it and writing down who it is
Yeah.
I need to talk to beforehand, all these different things. And it's like, I never would have thought that that's what it was. But that was my form of money because that's what keeps me on track. That's what I needed to do to run this business more efficient and more effective was to have more systems of organization beyond what I already had. And that was the lesson in the God, I needed more money. It wasn't the money, it was the actual lesson that I needed to get. Yeah, he never gives you what you
We're
want
always
all the
learning.
time. There's I look back on it, I'm sure you're the same way. You're like, thank God I didn't get this or get that. Thank God I didn't marry that
Oh,
person.
absolutely. If I would have been successful, some of the things I wanted to do, my head wouldn't fit through the doorway, right?
Yep.
And you know, yeah, he builds humility in us, humbleness for sure.
Yep. And then every time like I've thought in my business, I'm like, I'm the one doing this. I can do this. God's like, no, you can't. Wipes it all out from underneath me every
Yeah.
single time. He
Oh,
pulls the rug
yeah. I've
right
had
underneath
those.
me. And I'm like, dang it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had those moments too, Robin. It's amazing, you know. But it makes sense. You look back and go, man, I'm really glad that didn't work out, or I'm glad that did work out, or why wasn't I a touring musician, or why wasn't I a famous filmmaker? Well, because my talent and my purpose and my calling is to serve and help kids, and I'm okay. I'm fine with that now. I remember my first several years of teaching. I was like, yeah, this is cool, but I want to do something else. And now I'm kind of. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Mr. Holland's Opus
No, I haven't.
with Richard Dreyfuss. That was me. He kind of got into teaching kind of just to support his family. Then he realized he loved it, and so my first few years I liked it a lot, but I always thought I would transition into something else. But I'm perfectly at peace with where God has me now. And I could tell it's the same way for you as well.
It is. I wanted to be a famous singer and dancer. I'm still working on the famous part, but I know for a fact that I already know for a fact because God's gave me the vision because I couldn't figure out why in December of 2021, like my vision board, my nanny, it appeared in real life at the movie theater nonetheless. Scared me because I'm like, oh my God, this law of attraction is real. First time I realized that it actually is real. Because she was on my vision board. I had to show the lady. She probably thought I was nuts, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna make sure that you know that I'm not crazy. And so I showed her a picture of my vision board. I showed her picture, and she's like, she's just from a magazine. I didn't think nothing of it. So then when I realized that, and then in December, I'm like, I kept seeing all these different visions of speaking in front of crowds of like 30,000 people doing all these different things. And I'm like, now I'm sitting here in February and I'm like, of 2022, and I'm like, yeah, God, this hasn't happened yet. And I'm like, but that's why he gave me that vision, because I know that that's going to happen. I know that I'm going to be bigger and better. I looked at Tony Robbins. I'm like, I'm going to be better than him, and I'm going to do more. So now I understand that. But yeah, it's just our visions are real. You know, they happen. It's just up to us whether or not we follow them. So like, even when you're teaching the kids, you know, as a parent or as, you know, an actual teacher, you know, that's licensed in the teaching department, either way, you're the ones that build these kids up. You're the ones that sit there and say, hey, you want to be a leader? You can be a role model. You could be the next president for all I know. Or it could be the next person who is wiping my butt when I'm old because I can't do it anymore. But you're still a leader because we still need you. Because if we continue the way we're going, we're not going to live. We're not made to do this. We're made to be leaning on each other. We're made to do that. I can tell like that's like your resounding message as well. Even though we went totally off script. That's why I do my question.
Yeah. That's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good fellowship.
Somebody's out there that's listening to this right now. They heard everything we said, and they're like, this was the deepest conversation I have ever heard in my life between two complete strangers. That has been absolutely amazing. I guarantee there's at least one.
Oh, cool. Well, you know, I've enjoyed our chat, and you know, I thank you so much, Robin, for you know, having me on your show, and hopefully we can do this again sometime, and let's definitely keep in touch, okay? And I'll be glad to network and you know, share your information with my teacher friends and on my Facebook. And I just pray that God continues to bless you and your husband and your children, and to be safe and keep positive and happy, and know that he's in control.
I'll be praying for you and all your students out there in California too, because like I said, nobody could ever pay me enough to move out to California or New York or Minnesota. Minnesota again anyway, but the other two states, nobody could ever pay me enough.
Yeah. No, we're hopefully in the next few years, hopefully we'll be making some geographical changes, and maybe we'll check out Sioux Falls. You know, you never know.
True. Well, I suppose everybody who's been listening in on the podcast and everybody who is still with us, I hope that this message helped you, even though it was totally like unscripted. And that's all the podcasts are, but I'm like, not question wise. I hope that it resonated with at least one viewer, because what we've been talking about is something that everybody needs to hear, that you are wanted, you are loved. And at the end of the day, you got to be proud of who God made you to be, because you can always change it at any given time. We're both living proof, because Rob's cancer survivor 2 times, and me, I had a severe front right lobe traumatic brain injury. Can't talk, and I've been talking so long. And you can do anything you set your mind to. I mean, like, I've had to learn how to rewalk 3 times and stuff like that. So you can do anything you put your mind to. It's all up to you whether or not you want to do it. So thank you for tuning in to Healing for the Soul podcast. I appreciate your time, your energy, as always, especially with this one being longer. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Let people know that they need to be heard. And we're 2 complete strangers. If we can do this conversation, I know you can too. So make it a great day.